Hey, before we get started, just click that subscribe button for me. It helps me out a lot, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. Here we go.
It's been such a long time since I've been out here. I'm not gonna make it, and here I was hoping I would find what I was looking for. I just need a little sustenance. Oh my gosh, you came for me! Pokemon Legends Arceus. Mwah, chef's kiss. It is absolutely everything that I've been waiting for a Pokemon game. And when I saw the trailer, I was absolutely mind blown. Now, normally for trailers and Pokemon games in the last few years, it's been very lackluster. It's been really not at all what I've been expecting from Pokemon. But when I first saw that trailer, my eyes got so wide. I was so excited. I know that they put them out hand in hand, you know, the Diamond and Pearl remake, and then they did this, and the Diamond and Pearl remake looked like trash. Then as soon as I saw the Arceus come out, I was so excited. It was the first time in such a long time that I was hyped for a Pokemon game. It was one of those things where I just felt like I was a little kid again, and I was so ready to just get in and spend all my money, all my birthday money on a Pokemon game and play it for like 12 hours, and then just realize once I finished playing it, man, I don't have any friends. I can't play Pokemon against other people. What shall I do? Okay, I'm moving on. Happy? Don't look at me like that. Anyways, the real reason I am making this video today is to actually talk about the future of Pokemon, because I think because of this game, we are looking at such a bright future for Game Freak and for Pokemon in general, and I think there are three main contributing factors that really make this game shine and is going to show us a way towards what we're probably going to see in the future. And here is reason number one. Ah yes, the atmosphere. The accoutrement on the Pokemon sandwich. Now, if you don't know what accoutrement is, it's pretentious for the things that aren't the meat, the other things on the sandwich, but I digress. Atmosphere has always had an important place inside Pokemon games. Atmosphere has always been what gives the sense of adventure inside the games, you know, whether that be the characters, whether that be the music, whether that be the environment that you have to play through in order to get through each storyline, and the fact that each game was based around a real world place. All those things enact inside the atmosphere. This game changes things around a little bit because the atmosphere feels a lot different here than it does in any of the other games, and there are two main reasons for that. There's the visual aspect and there's the auditory aspect. The visual aspect is pretty adamant. The details of the models are better, the resolution is better, there's shell shading, there's a lot more detail in the expressions and body language and body movements of everything in its environment. The wind blows, the sun and the moon go up and down, the trees have wind behind them. There's an environment to be had inside the game, which is huge. It's something that we wanted for a long time. I feel like Sword and Shield attempted this, but did not do a good job doing it as it did in Arceus, which lends to such a greater moment when we got that announcement for Scarlet and Violet, because of the fact that we knew that they were going with that path, they were going with a more advanced looking environment to add to the atmosphere of the game. Number two is audio. Now, I will say that the soundtrack to Arceus was a little lackluster. I think that music has a huge piece to do with whether a game is going to be great or going to be bad, and it was just a little bit of a disappointment, a little downpour, considering all the different environments and the soundtrack that befitted them. But I do think on the audio win side of things, we have such great things like the sound of your footsteps, the sound of the Pokemon, the calls of the Pokemon. There's a lot of pieces of auditory that we had that really elevated the experience in this game, which I don't think we had in a lot of other games comparatively. And it also adds a whole new texture to how you experience the world around you. Now, I do think in the next game, hopefully, with the fact that it kind of looks to me like it's going to be based in like a Spain, Barcelona kind of vibe, if it is in this sort of better environment, that they give a better soundtrack. And I do know that there was a tweet about the fact that the composer for Undertale did get to do some of the sounds and music inside the new game, so we will see from there, but we're going to be moving on. Okay, so I actually took a really long time to make this video. I started in March and now it's about to be October. So I am going to combine point 2 and point 3 together. Really, it's an excuse for me to fanboy about this game coming out because Scarlet and Violet looks amazing and I'm super excited. It's been a really long time since a main content Pokemon game has been released that I've actually been excited about. Arceus was the first one I was excited for in a long time, but this one is a main staple game comparatively because Arceus was a side story basically. So let's do a comparison of really gameplay mechanics that I want to stay inside Scarlet and Violet that were from Arceus, considering that a lot of what they did experimenting with was Arceus kind of showing them what they could and couldn't do for this new game. Number 1 is crafting. Now, I know that they're going to do these sort of pit stops, like from the pictures on the game, it looks like they're doing sort of like in the wild, they have these sort of like almost gas station looking like Pokemon centers / Pokemarts. But I would really like the crafting to be an aspect inside the game because that'd be really cool. If there's a way to craft inside of a main Pokemon game, just so you can continuously be out in the wild, that would be a huge advantage inside the system, especially considering the game is co-op, which means that for now on, you're going to be able to explore whatever you want with your friends. It's no longer just a competition between two battlers. It's now actually people with you going around, doing what you want to do, going to each area. I know that it being non-linear means that it doesn't escalate in terms of difficulty depending on where you start and where you end with the gym leaders, but it does mean that going forward, you and your friends can sort of have different kinds of competition. Think about this. For instance, there is now a probability that since people can be together, co-op 4 players sort of things, you can make your own little competitions, like to see who could get a shiny first, who can catch a certain Pokemon first, who can get the best ability on the Pokemon. And there is reason to catch multiple Pokemon, especially if breeding becomes another part of the meta like it was in a lot of the other games. Another thing I want is side quests. Side quests were such a cool little addition to it. I know that they went more Monster Hunter to a degree with this last game, but with Scarlet and Violet, it would be so amazing to see side quests inside the storyline just because it is open world. Side quests could be a whole new opportunity for people instead of just talking to random people through each town and maybe finding a Pokemon that you can't get unless you trade it with a certain person. You could do side quests that have the same results. You can have side quests that would get you specific items, side quests that would just kind of get you from point A to point B. And there's also the point that sometimes people have a really hard time holding on to cash inside the game. I remember when I was young and I was playing the game, I would spend all my money really quickly on items and then I would run out of items and then I had to figure out, finding someone to battle so I could get more money. So it's really cool, the idea that you could do side quests for cash, items, Pokemon, and it's just a little addition, a little piece of the world that's more real inside an open world game such as this one's going to be. So I just think that that's another aspect that could really enhance the experience inside of this new region. Also, the way your Pokemon interact inside the world. I did always love the idea of having your Pokemon follow you, like in Silver and Gold and all those other sorts of games, because there's been a couple that lets you have your Pokemon follow behind you, but also the aspect that Arceus had where you could throw your Pokemon out for battle and then also for hitting trees and items and things like that. I think that's a huge piece of what could be going on inside of Scarlet and Violet that I want to see inside this new game, because it has so much more realism to it in terms of using your Pokemon for daily activities every single time you are out on the field. It no longer just felt like you used your Pokemon for battles. I know a lot of people compared Pokemon being a world of just dog fights, but really Pokemon are partners. Pokemons use their abilities and their partnership with their trainer to have a better experience overall. Well, at least in the anime. I mean, the games, like I said, only really came out when you needed them to do flying, swimming, or battling. But with this, it would be such a good opportunity, especially if it's open world, if your Pokemon could follow along with you and then also use them for those sort of, throwing them to surprise a Pokemon for a battle, or, use them to like hit trees and things like that. So it just feels like you have more of a companion versus more of a digital monster that you kind of throw out whenever you need it. Now, I do have some concerns with this new game. Mostly the gimmick transformation that they're talking about. I don't hate the idea of having a new transformation and it pretty much for certain Pokemon, it changes their typing. I actually find that really interesting. Mind you, it's not new. They had that sort of thing with Mega Evolutions as well, considering Charizard had 2 different Mega Evolutions and they changed his typing when he Mega Evolved. But I do think it's a cool idea. I just don't like the presentation of it. I think it's not aesthetically pleasing to have this weird sort of figure coming out of their head. The crystallization is kind of dope. I do like that idea if they became like crystallized sort of figurine sort of creatures, but I don't love the fact that it looks really dumb with this sort of like flower or like little articulate design sticking out of their head, because it really doesn't change the Pokemon. It doesn't really represent in my head the idea that this Pokemon has now changed types. If they had like done this sort of crystallization where like their coloring changed depending on their type, or like almost like Digimon, like a de-evolution where like the certain parts of them changed for that time period and then they de-digivolved back to their original state, that kind of made more sense in my head considering what the gimmick is for this Pokemon game versus what they're actually doing with it. Another thing I have a pretty big concern with overall with this Pokemon game is just the fact that there's no scaling. So because it's non-linear, which is cool, you can take the gym leaders in any order that you want. But the problem with it is that there's no scaling. So let's say you beat the hardest gym leader first, which isn't probably going to happen, but someone's probably going to do it. Then none of the other ones are harder. They're easier, which means that the game is less intense. There's less to do in terms of like, it feels like a chore beating the gym leaders versus what it's going to feel like beating the hardest one, you know? So because there's no scaling for each gym leader depending on which order you take it in, yes, it is free range. You can do whichever one you want, but they kind of have an order just like before. It's just that you don't have to take that order now. But a lot of the Pokemon that they're showing for the new region look dope. You know, Fido is the most amazing, cute little being on this earth, and I will protect him with my whole heart and soul. But this game does look amazing. I mean, the fact that Toby Fox is doing a lot of the music for certain areas, the fact that it is 4-player co-op, the fact that it's so vibrant and it has cell shading, and the fact that it has such a amazing sort of look to it, it definitely looks more closer to that remake of Pokemon Snap than one of the older games. I'm glad that the characters look more anime versus chibi, and I love the idea that overall you're going to have an experience with a group of people if you want, or by yourself, and that you can create your own journey through this game. I'm sure there are going to be plot points, and I'm sure that those plot points are going to have a linear path to them, but because it is open world, you can make the choice not to take those linear paths. And you can also make the choice to decide where you go, which Pokemon to prioritize. It's not just this game where you beat one town, you go to the next, and there's only certain Pokemon around. This time around, you can go wherever you want, and you can get whichever Pokemon you want first. So if you want an all-ice team, go to the snow plains first. If you want a grass type, there are plenty of grassy fields. You know, grass type are typically the easiest to find in any region. But after all is said and done, what this game is showing us is that Game Freak listens to the people who play the game. Let's be real about this, right? Pokemon is not a kid's game. It's not. Now, it is technically, but the actual demographic of Pokemon is a whole lot older. If you even go to Japan, a lot of the small children and school kids, they don't particularly play Pokemon anymore. They're playing Yokai Watch. They're playing a lot of newer sort of in their field sort of series. A lot of the standard audience for Pokemon are in their 20s. A lot of the people who play the game still, for the most part, are actually a lot older. So the fact that we are being listened to, considering there is a whole generation of American, Japanese, you know, European kids that have an idea of what they want from this game, especially considering we're getting a lot more games with a lot more freedom. This game particularly is showing us that they actually want to care and listen. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that a newer team is getting implemented in making the game. The next generation of developers for Game Freak are coming in and they are creating for this new series of Pokemon. I think they have a better ear to the ground of what people want from Pokemon versus the older guys who have made legendary progress but have probably stagnated in terms of trying to listen to others when it comes to development. Overall, I'm super excited. Arceus was amazing. I hope Scarlet and Violet is amazing. It looks amazing. But that's all the time I have. If you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments. Again, if you want to subscribe, click that button, and it helps me out a lot, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. See you next time.